All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into time travel.
Ooh, time travel, a classic.
Isn't it, though? And for today's deep dive, you sent over some really wild stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we've got this transcript from a Spanish-language YouTube video,
Okay.
and it's, get this, a hypnotist is interviewing somebody about real-life time travelers.
That's a pretty interesting source for sure.
It is, right? So I'm really excited to see what we can find in here.
Yeah, me too.
So we should just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so right off the bat, the person being hypnotized, they're talking about these two types of time travelers.
Yeah.
They call them, and I'm going to try and say this right, travelers with a capital T and chrononauts.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what really stood out to me is it seems like not every time traveler is just out there like, joyriding through history.
You're right. That's a really important detail you picked up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the term chrononauts, that chronos in there, that implies a purpose, right? Like, they've got a mission, they've got a job. It makes you think there's some system at play, maybe even something that started here on Earth.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Slow down for a second.
Okay.
Are you saying that some of these time travelers, these chrononauts, are basically on somebody's payroll? Like they're going through time for a reason?
Well, that's definitely what the source seems to be suggesting.
Wow.
And it gets even wilder.
Okay.
It sounds like not every time traveler has to follow these rules, you know?
Right.
The travelers, the ones with the capital T, they seem like they're a lot more
Okay. Yeah.
more independent.
That's wild. But okay, before we get too deep into what these time travelers are actually up to in the past, I just got to know, how is time travel even possible? Like, are we talking spaceships in wormholes here?
Not quite, no. The transcript, it talks about this thing called telepathic projection.
Okay.
It's about manipulating vibration and energy, kind of like
Oh, okay.
disassembling and then reassembling matter in a different spot.
Oh, so they basically disintegrate and then reappear somewhere else.
It's something like that.
Wow.
They compare it to a computer network where you need these specific coordinates to get into different networks.
Oh.
And I guess we can think of those networks as different timelines.
Right.
And they do say there are risks,
Okay.
especially if you try to get into these restricted networks or timelines.
Okay, so there are rules even for time travelers.
It seems that way.
See, that's what keeps coming back to me, consequences.
Right.
Like, if someone's messing around back there in the past,
Yeah.
doesn't that change everything? I mean, what happens to our timeline, to our present?
That's a really important question.
It is.
But it seems that not every time traveler can actually change the past.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the travelers, they're described as mostly observers.
Yeah.
Like they're there to check out different realities, collect information, almost like cosmic tourists, you know?
Yeah.
It's the chrononauts, the ones connected to that control system we talked about, that seem to have a bigger role in shaping events.
Shaping events. Like how,
Ooh.
can you give me an example of what kind of things they're messing with?
Sure, the source mentions things like the Twin Towers,
Oh.
wars,
Oh, wow.
even the way we think about aliens.
Really?
Yeah, like shifting from seeing them as a threat to potential saviors, that kind of thing.
That's a lot to take in.
It is, right?
So we've got these rogue time travelers out there sightseeing, and then these chrononauts, like what, temporal agents, working for this mysterious organization. So I'm picturing like futuristic jumpsuits and gadgets.
Right.
What do these time travelers look like?
It's actually much more flexible than that.
Oh.
The source describes this ability they have, molecular flexibility.
Okay.
So they can take on different forms, even animals.
Wow, so like shape-shifting.
Yeah, they even bring up Native American tribes and their connection to nature.
Oh, interesting.
Like there might be a link there.
So maybe some of those stories about shamans shape-shifting aren't so crazy after all.
Maybe not.
So we've got undercover time travelers living among us, potentially changing history as we know it. That's fascinating. Okay, back to these chrononauts working for the control system. What exactly are they doing? How do they gather information?
Think of them like super advanced data collectors.
Okay.
Basically, they're like robots in human form. The source describes them entering specific points in time,
Right.
observing, gathering data, and then they report everything back to some central hub.
Like letting surveillance cameras scattered throughout history.
Exactly.
Wow.
But, and this is where it gets interesting, the source says this whole method of gathering information, it's considered obsolete now.
Yeah.
And risky.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like the control system is evolving, changing its tactics.
So if they're not sending these chrononauts back to gather data and mess with events, What are they doing?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But this shift, this moving away from directly intervening,
Yeah.
it suggests they might be trying a more subtle approach now.
More subtle. Like how, you mean like planting ideas, influencing people's decisions?
Exactly. Like a puppeteer who's letting go of the strings,
Right.
choosing a more subtle form of control.
So instead of outright changing events, they're trying to manipulate how we think and act to get what they want.
That's a very good way to put it.
And that's where we'll leave it for today.
Sounds good to me. It's a lot to process, that's for sure.
It really is. Time travelers, control systems, subtle manipulation. It's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right, and it begs the question, what can we learn from these time travelers, with their unique perspective on everything?
That's a good point. And the source did mention a final thought from the time traveler.
Yeah.
Something about questioning leading to decision, decision leading to movement, and then movement preventing stagnation in the face of chaos.
It's a powerful statement.
It is, right?
Especially given everything we've talked about so far. It's like they're saying, even with all this uncertainty, all these attempts to control, we still have free will.
So it's not just about, like, telling us about time travel. It's about giving us a way to navigate our own lives.
Exactly. They're stressing the importance of critical thinking, of making choices, of taking action is a really empowering message.
Okay, I like that. But what does that actually look like in real life? How do we apply that to our everyday lives?
Well, think about it this way. If someone's trying to subtly manipulate you, the best defense is awareness.
Okay, yeah.
So by questioning the information we come across, examining different perspectives, we become less vulnerable to manipulation.
So it's about being informed, but also being picky about what you believe and who you trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then comes the decision-making part.
Right.
Once we've gathered all that information and we've formed our own opinions, we have to make choices, right?
Yeah.
And those choices, even the small ones,
Yeah.
they lead to action, to movement.
And that movement, that action, is what keeps us from becoming, like, stagnant, from getting stuck in the stories other people create for us.
You got it.
Okay, this is all starting to click now, but this whole idea of increasing chaos, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's an interesting question.
It is.
And remember, the time traveler described it as amplified energy, not necessarily negative.
Right.
It's like a shakeup, a disruption of the old ways of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that disruption can be scary, but it can also create space for something new.
Okay, so it's not about fighting change, it's about accepting it even when it feels chaotic.
Exactly. Think about it like this.
Okay.
If you want to bake a cake, you got to crack some eggs, right?
Right.
The process can be messy, but the end result is something delicious and new.
I like that. So maybe this chaos is actually a sign of progress, of humanity breaking free from old patterns.
It's definitely a possibility worth considering.
Okay. And if the time travelers are right, our choices, they actually play a role in shaping this new reality.
They do.
That's pretty powerful.
It is.
But also a little bit scary. It means we have a responsibility to make good choices, to contribute to something positive.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the control system. If they're trying to influence us, to steer us towards a specific outcome, then it's even more important for us to be aware, to make choices that align with our values.
Right. It all connects.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, let's say for a second that these time travelers are right and this control system is real.
Yeah.
What's their goal? What are they trying to accomplish?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And unfortunately, we just don't have a clear answer.
Okay.
But if we consider that message from the time traveler,
The questioning, decision, movement,
exactly, maybe their goal is to actually suppress those very things.
to keep us from evolving, from reaching our full potential.
It's a scary thought, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, it is.
Because if they can control the narrative, keep us distracted and divided, it becomes that much easier to stay in control.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's like a reminder to be critical thinkers, to challenge the way things are, to make choices that give us power, not take it away.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of seeking out different perspectives,
Yeah.
listening to voices that challenge our assumptions and constantly questioning the information we're given.
Because if we don't question, if we don't choose, if we don't move, then we risk becoming like pawns in someone else's game.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the time travelers. They're not just giving us facts about time travel, they're giving us a roadmap for navigating this complex, uncertain reality.
A roadmap based on questioning, choosing, and moving. Not just through time and space, but through our own minds and beliefs.
Exactly. And that's maybe the most profound lesson they have to offer.
All right, we're getting close to the end of our deep dive here, and we've explored some pretty mind-bending ideas about time travel, control systems, and the power of human consciousness.
We have.
So what are some of the key takeaways you think our listeners should walk away with?
I think the most important takeaway is this. We are not just passive bystanders in our own lives.
Right.
We have the power to choose, to act, to shape our reality, even when things feel chaotic and out of control.
I like that. And how do we actually tap into that power? What are some concrete steps our listener can take to embrace this idea of empowerment?
First things first, cultivate a healthy sense of skepticism.
Okay.
Question everything. Don't just accept information at face value, especially when it comes from sources with their own agenda.
So, like, don't just believe everything you read on the internet.
Exactly. Do your own research, find different perspectives, and come to your own conclusions based on critical thinking and evidence.
Great advice. What else?
Engage in open and honest conversations with others, even those who have different opinions.
Okay.
Through respectful conversation, we can challenge our own biases and broaden our understanding of the world.
So it's not about winning arguments. It's about learning and growing together.
Exactly. And finally, remember that action is key. Don't just sit back and watch. Get involved in causes you care about. Support organizations that align with your values. Make your voice heard.
Because our choices, our actions, no matter how small, they contribute to the energy that shapes our reality.
Exactly. And that's a powerful thing.
It is.
It means we're not just passengers on this spaceship Earth.
Right.
We're co-pilots.
And if those time travelers are right about this increasing chaos, maybe we're all being called to step up and take the controls. It really seems like this time travel thing, it's about way more than just breaking the laws of physics.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about figuring out where we fit in the universe and realizing the power we have as individuals.
I like that. It's about recognizing that we have choices, even when things feel chaotic and like we have no control.
And speaking of chaos, that's something that came up a lot in our discussion today. This idea that we're entering this period of intense energy, like a big cosmic shakeup.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's certainly interesting, and it seems to line up with a lot of what we see happening in the world right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, think about it. The crazy speed of technology these days, the fact that everyone's connected globally, the way old systems of power are crumbling, it's all part of this accelerated evolution we're going through.
So maybe this chaos, it's not necessarily bad.
Right. Maybe it's just a sign that things are changing, shifting, that we're moving towards something new.
It's a pretty optimistic way to look at it.
It is, and if we think back to what that time traveler said, about questioning, choosing, and moving forward,
Right.
we can see this chaos as a chance to grow and transform.
A chance to break free from all the limitations of the past and build a future that actually reflects our values.
Exactly, and that brings us right back to the control system. If they're trying to hold on to order to stop us from growing and evolving, then it becomes even more important for us to embrace this chaos, to use it to create positive change.
To fight that urge, to cling to what's familiar, to what's comfortable, and instead step into the unknown, even if it's scary.
Yes, because it's out there in the unknown, in the spaces outside the control system's reach, that we find our true potential.
It's like this cosmic dance between order and chaos, control and freedom.
It is.
And as individuals, we have the power to choose which side we want to be on.
And every choice we make, every action we take, it ripples out, affecting others and the future of humanity as a whole.
It's almost like we're all time travelers in a way, shaping the future with every decision we make.
That's a great way to put it. It really highlights how interconnected everything is.
Yeah, our choices don't just impact our own lives, they influence the lives of others and the direction humanity takes.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is, but it's also an incredible opportunity.
Absolutely, and maybe that's the most important message these time travelers are trying to give us.
What's that?
That we have the power to create our own destiny, both as individuals and as a collective.
Wow, that's a pretty mind-blowing thought to end on. We've gone from a hypnotist's interview to this, like grand exploration of time, control, and free will.
It has been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has.
And I hope our listeners walk away from this feeling more curious and with a better understanding of how they can help shape the future.
I think that's a great takeaway. To our listeners, keep questioning, keep choosing, keep moving forward, embrace the chaos, explore the unknown, and never stop believing in your power to make the world a better place.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll even run into a time traveler yourself.
And if you do, make sure you ask them if they've learned anything new about that control system. We're still dying to know what their ultimate goal is.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
This is The Deep Dive. Signing off.